There is an agenda. Thank you. I will open up our communications. Public comment is open for up to 3 minutes each. It would be helpful to state your name for the record. Public comment is open. No, so the timer's not here. What is that?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board, Mr. Stoll. Some of us recall there was an old newscaster named Harvey based in Chicago. And his famous thing was, he always ended it with, "This is the rest of the story." Some of you are probably too young to remember him. But anyway, I just want to point out the rest of the story was an editorial in the Herald last Friday by Jeff Davey, head of Coalition of Peninsula Businesses, which really stated very carefully and very explicitly why it's not appropriate to drop out of the CDO at this time until such time as the desal plant looks like it's going to be online. So some of us believe Mr. Davey, and he speaks for a whole group of organizations as the chair of that coalition. If you haven't read this, I suggest you read it. It's a different story than what you hear from the assistant director and the director and the staff. It's what a lot of the community believes. So we still have a divided community, but still we need to make sure true facts and arguments get out to the public. And I'm hoping to hear more at some future time about your proposal to have a committee for putting out information to the community. There's definitely a need for that. So thank you very much.
And now for the rest of the story. Michael Bear, now hailing from Pacific Grove, California. Good to be back in town. Ian, congratulations being the chair. You must be the hardest working man elected in the county. Thank you for being here. George, congratulations. Made it through the years to chair. And Mary Ann, welcome aboard. The CP, I got a couple of points I want to make about my problems with CalAm. The CPUC has a quarterly report they put out. It's what they're supposed to do. And next quarter, they will surpass $250 million on this project that hasn't even broken ground yet. It hasn't upgraded the budget in 8 years since 2018. And it's proposing a size, 4.8, that 10 years ago, they said did not work due economies of scale. So the CPUC is not doing its job. The costs go up every quarter, and $250 million, they haven't broken ground. The second point I'd like to make is to direct council to review the 2016 hearing from the State Water Resources Control Board in Sacramento. I think it was June, when they were going for their last 5-year extension on the CDO. And at that time, George and I drove up to that in Sacramento, before you were elected. And the staff was talking about the three-legged stool, expansion of Pure Water Monterey, ASR, and the desal plant. And at that time, they said the desal plant looks like it's ahead of the game, it's further along. But the staff also said, if you meet the budget, it doesn't matter who meets the budget. And I think this is a really good argument. It's just like 20 minutes, go back and look at it, that you can say, look, we met the budget, because now supply exceeds demand by 20%. We're storing more water than so I think that's an argument for the CDO, drop the CDO, pressure CalAm to answer to the ratepayers why they are against it, and why they've spent $250 million before they broke ground. Thank you.
Public comment remains open.
Yes, I have Susan Schiavone. Susan, when you're ready.
Good evening, board, staff, everyone. Do I have an echo? No. I just wanted to point out two things. I sent a letter in that I had sent to the CPUC, and there is some choppy grammar, but the reason for that is the CPUC only accepts so many words and increments, and I had to keep cutting my grammar out in order to meet their numbers of increments. So I hope you'll take a look at that. And the other thing is to offer an alternative to Mr. Rowley's editorial. I hope people also saw the editorial written by the Land Watch director, Michael DeLappa, where he also put out some very good information. I believe it was in the Herald as a guest editorial. And so that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Chair Oglesby, I see no other raised hands.
Thank you so much. Public comment remains open. Seeing no one else, hearing no one else, public comment is closed. We'll go on to the consent agenda. Item 1, consider adoption of minutes for regular board meeting, January 26, 2026. 2, consider adoption of treasury report for December 2025. 3, receive and file second quarter financial activity reports for fiscal year 2025 to 2026. 4, consider approval of annual update of investment policy. 5, consider approval of the second quarter fiscal years 2026, 25-26 investment report. That concludes the reading of consent agenda. Is there any item that anyone wants to pull off the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull item number 5.
Is there any item anyone from the public would like to pull off the consent agenda?
I see no raised hands.
All right, bringing it back to you got a couple questions, or you just want to pull it off for a long discussion, or?
No, not alone, but to show the public
Okay.
what we have on that item. I looked at the administrative meeting that they had, and that item came up, and I like the public to see how we're doing in our investments.
Okay, let me-
So if we could bring that up.
Yeah, let me handle this first.
Okay.
Get right to it. The consent agenda includes everything except item number 5. What is the will of the board? And it's approving the consent agenda. It's been probably moved there a second.
Second, go ahead.
Probably moved in second. On the question, any public comment? Public comment is closed. All those in favor use the regular sign of voting, which is aye.
Aye.
Nays have the same right. Abstentions, hearing none, ayes have it, motion carried. Item number 5, consider approval of the second quarter fiscal year 2025-26 investment report. Gentlemen, have any highlights before we get to any particular areas? Director Edwards would like to highlight.
You know, we'll have Michelle, our CFO, will comment.
Good evening, everyone. Do you want me to just provide an overview of the report, or do you have a question?
I just want them to see the chart that you made of how our investments are going.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that, Director Edwards. This time around, we wanted to provide some visual information.
Yes.
It's easier to interpret and see how things are. Our investments have gone up in the last 2+ years. And like I said at the FSC, I'm not going to take credit for it because it's not due. But we have followed the investment philosophy. Number 1, if it's working, don't change it. Number 2, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. So what we have done so far is we have made some optimization decisions. And so we have moved money into high yielding accounts such as LAIF and MBS, multi-bank securities. And so if you look over a span of 1 year, there's an additional 2 million that has gone into LAIF that was earning us 4%, and multi-bank securities, also an additional 1.5 million. So our investment income has risen, and I don't know if Sarah can bring that up. but that summarizes, like, so we have been earning pretty well, and that's kind of offsetting the loss in some of the other revenue streams that we have seen in the last 2 years. And so as a fiduciary, we are required to follow the threefold objectives of liquidity, safety, and then earning a reasonable return. And we have tried to kind of fulfill on those three objectives.
I
Okay.
think there's a graphic.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab it,
Page 48.
There we go.
like zoom out. Actually, there are two of them.
Well, yeah, while she's doing that, is there any questions or comments? Director Edwards, you got anything you want to say about this?
Well,
It's the next one.
hey, we're doing good. I was talking to the general manager, I believe it was Friday on it, and he hit it. The way things have been going, the Fed has helped us a little bit. We may think things are bad out here, but on the other side, things are good for like public agencies and investments through the feds. So I just want the public to see that graph up there, how we were flat and then we start going up with these interest rates, the way the Fed has held them and raised them and lowered them or whatever. We are still doing good, and we're doing good in our investments. So that's all I had on that one. I just wanted to highlight that after seeing it on the administrative committee, that we're doing good. And I think the public got to see how well we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to set the expectations for future, there is an unrealized gain component that's an accounting thing that might be like increasing the returns, but that's only 15%. So our portfolio has gone up even without the unrealized gains. So
Well, thank you.
thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you. Public comment is open.
I have Susan Schiavone. Susan, when you're ready.
Yes, Susan Schiavone, Seaside. That is wonderful news to see, and it's turning it around from 2022, considering where it was, it's pretty amazing, and happy to see that the agency is doing that well with investments. Thank you for sharing that.
Seeing no one else, public comment is closed, bringing it back to the board. What is the will?
I move approval of item number 5.
Second.
The property moved to second, on the question. All those in favor, use regular sign voting, which is aye.
Aye.
Nays have the same right. Abstentions, hearing none, the ayes have it, motion carried. Let's go to item number 6, which is the general manager report.
Okay, thank you. We're going to touch on supply versus demand, the acquisition of CalAm and water supply projects. Sarah's bringing it up. Production for customer service is our first chart. This is total water produced to meet customer needs. And 3 things I want to highlight on the chart, second page, please. Is you see for the first time the table 13 water right kicking in. This is a winter water right related to flows in the river and obviously rainfall. But the corollary, of course, is the Carmel River water right was decreased. And so we're still not seeing a substantial use of the river's water right. But it is good to see the table 13. The other item is Sand City desal last month was aggressive and good at 20 acre feet. And then the additional item, pure water Monterey recovery, you can see is a total of 1804 at the bottom, but we actually delivered 2142. So the company is finding itself in a position where, because of things like table 13 water right availability in the winter and so forth, they're not able to get all the pure water Monterey water out, which is also due to the expansion project coming online, and deliveries have ramped up on a monthly basis. So we're seeing What I would say is that a little bit of change in behavior where Cal-Am traditionally has gotten out almost 100% of deliveries every month. So they have fallen a little bit behind, but it's very early in the water year. And on the whole, we're about 153 acre feet lower in demand than the same point in time last year. Next slide, please. On the supply side, we're still working on formatting this chart. This is a new chart, so give us some time. But the couple of takeaways here, you see the ASR recovery. So there is storage at the beginning of the year at 4,392 acre feet. There's been nothing produced for delivery to customers, but there have been quite a bit of injected water, which we'll see a chart on in a little bit. So the storage number is actually going up kind of on a daily basis. Overall, I think the piece of evidence that you see here that's concerning is only the 552 acre feet produced from the Carmel River to date. So hopefully, as things progress, we'll see that, because that water right is available at 3,376. So we'll keep our eye on that one. Next chart. This is rainfall. Not much to say there other than apparently Michael's outdoor birthday party for his child did not get rained on Saturday, but most everybody else's events last week did. At 14 inches, just over 14 inches, that's 125% of long-term average through the end of January. The next chart shows through yesterday. And you can see those most recent rains in early February added about 5 inches to the average. We're now actually above normal. So we went from below average to above normal in a water year classification based on rainfall. At the above normal thresholds 21 and 67/100ths of an inch. So I think, and you can see the stair stepping of the red line, that's the cumulative line. That's pretty good conditions for ASR. You want periodic rains, not just all at once. Speaking of ASR, on the next chart, you can see we had a very slow start in December, and then pretty great production. And then we had that slow period in late January, early February. And now we're back in later February with a little over 13 acre feet per day on average. And we see at least 2 more weeks likely, if not 3 to 4 weeks, depending on what happens with coming rains, a couple of nights next week. At 13 acre feet per day, that's close to 200 acre feet in a 2-week period. So 390 in a month. So we are looking good, but the long-term average is about 1,200 acre feet per year of available supply. So we don't really know if we're going to end up on the average, but it is looking good. And there's the total storage number up from what you saw on a previous chart at the beginning of the year. Turning our attention to water supply projects, just an update, actually related somewhat to Mr. Bear's comments on the Cal-Am desal plant. Next slide, please, Sarah. Cal-Am did file its SEC filing, a Form 10-K for the annual year ended December 31st. And in the notes, it reminds us all that the Public Utilities Commission approved what's called a cost cap of $279 million plus AFUDC, which is called allowance for funds used during construction or interest. And the 10-K says that they have incurred $324 million in aggregate costs as of the end of last year, including 107 of the AFUDC. So these can, add a little bit of storyline to those numbers you heard reported. The next chart shows where that all comes from. So the 324 aggregate minus the 107 of AFUDC means there's 217 million of expended project-related funds. And those can actually be traced. The Monterey pipeline, which was approved by the PUC in 2016, is the $50 million number. Extraction wells 1 and 2, the parallel pipeline, and the Carmel Valley pump station were approved in the phase 1 of the last proceeding that was a decision issued in December of 2022. And then extraction wells 3 and 4 were also approved, and a decision or confirmed a little additional monies were allowed by the PUC in May of last year. So you take the 217 minus all of those approved projects, and you can see there's 94 million of remaining expenditure, which is attributable to the desalination facility. So that's really the number. But keep in mind, that's with the AFUDC taken out. Now, AFUDC is approved with each project, and there's been about 8 million of AFUDC on the projects that have been approved and made used and useful, meaning put into service. That's the Monterey pipeline, the parallel pipeline, and the Carmel Valley pump station. When extraction wells 1 and 2 come online, then that AFUDC number will become known and so forth. But what that means is 107 minus around the 8 million, there's 99 million of AFUDC. So the combination of the two, the 94 million of expenditures to date and roughly the 99 million of AFUDC is all related to costs that are being carried on the desal facility since around 2011, continuing to be incurred to date. So that's where those numbers come from. As the speaker mentioned, the budget for the project has not been updated since really late 2017. But the actual numbers that have been expended are in the SEC filing and can be relied upon. And so this is basically where those numbers fall. Lastly, I want to update you on the acquisition. We have a case management conference tomorrow morning. I've looked in the magic 8 ball and I see that we will very likely split the case into a bench trial on the activation of latent powers, or what we call the LAFCO issue. And then the right to take, which is really the crux of the eminent domain proceeding, trial would trail that one, and there will be no schedule for it until the first case is resolved. But we do hope that latent powers trial will happen this summer. That will be what the request will be during the case management conference. And that concludes my report.
Well done. Any questions? Director Rob.
Dave, is the AFUDC funds, are they collected mid-year or something prior to the completion of the project? Is that an expense that gets plowed into the rates as you go along?
It does get put into the rates along with the project costs. So when a project is declared used and useful, meaning it comes online, then the accumulated interest during construction and the project cost itself then get rolled into the rate base.
So it's by a completed project that's used and useful and goes back to PUC for approval.
Correct.
My second question is, didn't the PUC put a cap on the desal project? Isn't that in the 300 and mid 300?
It is. It was 279 million.
Is that okay?
And I think it's in the footnote on the first page. But it does not include the AFUDC number. So the Monterey Peninsula Water Supply Project itself is more than just the desal project. It was the desal project plus an interconnection to the Hidden Hills system, plus the Carmel Valley pump station, the parallel pipeline, which allows water to move towards Monterey in the Monterey pipeline. At the same time, water heading into injection in ASR was deemed to be part of the water supply project, as were the new extraction wells. So as those project costs accumulate and are actually approved, they're working against that $279 million cap. And so the math that we showed kind of calculates actual dollars spent and does show you that they haven't hit the cap yet. But that number inclusive of AFUDC is getting, precipitously close to the cap.
It just seemed to me there are two numbers that are very dated and do not serve any purpose anymore because they're so dated. One is the cost of construction, which was estimated in 2018, 2017, 2018. That's many years out of date. So
Yeah.
that number is kind of unrealistic. And the other is this cap number is also out of date because of just what we know is going to be built up over time, and it's going to exceed that number by a lot. We just don't know how much. But I just think it's unfortunate that Cal-Am has very dated numbers in whatever it is they present to the public, or whatever the public looks for. They can find these numbers, but they're very dated. They're out of date.
And Director Riley, I'll give you a third number that's also out of date, which is the annual operating expense of operating the project. So we have done analysis on the California Construction Cost Index, which would be on the order of maybe 45 to almost 50% higher than 2017. And then for energy, power, labor, and so forth in operations, you go to look at the CPI, which also has had escalation during that period of time. So both numbers end up translating to what's called the annual revenue requirement to operate the plant and to pay for the financing costs or depreciation charge, if you will. Those two numbers together have not been updated.
Thank you. I have a question that's regarding, again, I think maybe you were trying to get this chart working for me as well, because I'm having trouble really following the injection. I'd love to be able to see the numbers. So my understanding of the break from from January 26th through February, something like the 14th or so, that's because there wasn't enough flow to inject.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay, or to pull off.
Yep.
So,
The minimum in-stream flow requirement.
so we're now probably going to see rain in March, and then that window, when does our season tend to come down?
The end of May.
The end of
So
May.
One year we had April rains and we
Okay.
kept going, and we don't.
So that's why this goes to June. Okay, I got it. So what I would love to see, which would be helpful, is, so we've got cumulative injection. How this shows us, I see the 13-ish over here on the right-hand side for daily injection. But it would just be great to get a map, part of our charts that shows us, instead of 0, even though I realize the 0's there because we're not pulling it out, can we get a chart that shows us what we pulled off and put in acre feet?
Yeah, we'll look at a different way to present it, because that bar chart that you were looking at.
Yeah,
The yellow bars are the daily amount that was injected,
okay,
and the blue line is the cumulative amount that has been injected. So the tip of the blue line is roughly that.
13 acre feet.
Well, the blue line happens to land right about where the yellow line is, but it's actually at 486 cumulative acre feet.
Oh, that's the cumulative going
So
with
the
this
blue
side.
line, yeah.
Okay, got it. So yeah, it would just be helpful, because it's, when I see ASR recovery and I'm looking at monthly production, right now we're producing every single day right now,
Right.
but we're showing zeros because it's not
delivered to the customer.
it's not delivered to the customer. So wherever else that could possibly fit would be really helpful to me. Because the 4,392 number comes from many years.
Yeah, correct.
It's from several years. And
Right.
so it would just be helpful to see what we're doing. So we also know where we might want to maximize in the future or
Sure.
follow up on it.
Director Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow up on, under, Director Daniel, how much water ASR, pure water Monterey, 1 and 2, have we injected in the ground? What is our total storage? Is it at 4,888? Or is it a bigger number?
It's a bigger number because we have an operating reserve for pure water.
I would like for you to put in your
Yep.
report that number so the community will know how much water we fully have stored and how many years will that carry over. That's also good for the CDO that we have that water. Talking about, we have water in the ground and we talking about doing a bigger project, another project, but I think we can cover it with those numbers. My next question, I hear bench trial in the summer. Are y'all gonna be talking about tomorrow? About, are we gonna wait for the San Jose court to put had a trial, put out a judgment on that before we do this next trial?
Good question. And the answer,
Powers.
yep, the answer is no. We will ask the Superior Court judge to resolve the latent powers issue as a separate issue. So you may remember that we filed cross motions, a motion for summary adjudication from us and a motion for summary judgment from the Cal-Am's attorneys. Both were rejected, which left the kind of the opposing facts unresolved. And the judge said, well, when we get to trial, you can resolve them. I think I don't know if you were in on the discussion with David Moran of Manat, but our eminent domain attorney was, I think Dave Laredo was. I believe the conclusion there is, let's get that point on latent powers out of the way first. If the district loses, you'll have the opportunity to take it to San Jose, if you will, appeal it. If the district prevails, then that would mean that our current LAFCO appeal would become moot, and we would be determined to have the latent power is activated or is determined to be that it never was inactive, that we had activated it. That would then allow us to move straight to the bench trial on the right to take.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I had 1 or 2 questions for you. I'm talking about the construction costs, Cal-Am's diesel construction costs. Is there any way to require them to update that number? We keep talking about it. So what I want to do is, if the answer is no, then we should not try to bring it up every 30 days. I know why they're not updating the number, because it's probably close to the limit, right? But is there any requirement, and you may not know right now, General Manager, but maybe that's something we can figure out. Are they required? Is there something we do to make them give it? And if not, then maybe we need a little bit more work done on our estimation of the cost and just put that out. I know they don't have to adopt it. I know it's not looked at as real, but our basic number is just as good as their basic number. If they want to dispute it, then they need to update that. So does that make sense to do?
It totally makes sense. And
Okay.
with Director Paul's background, we've had some conversation about what can you do to motivate the PUC to take an action. And I think we're getting pretty close to needing to rethink that, because there are other issues such as rate making, that, you know, the deal that was cut between the company and the Coastal Commission. That's really a PUC issue. The CPUC also said that if you do exceed the cost cap, you need to file a petition for modification of that 2018 decision. Well, to your point, not knowing means you haven't violated the cost cap, but at some point they will either have to come with a revised story or a petition for modification. So,
Well, that's my point. Is someone like, I almost, we got just about as much credibility as anyone else, but someone with our credibility said, this is our estimation. that you're within 10, 12, $8 million of the cap, then someone should be saying $218 have to be over or near, or show us how you're not over. Okay, we'll go through that a little bit later on. Any other questions, comments? Let's go to the district council's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So your report is found written on page 49 of your packet. I'll just go through briefly some of the updates. For your first case, this is the district versus Cal-Am 23 CV 004102. This is the eminent domain case. As was already talked about, the only update there is that a case management conference is scheduled for tomorrow at 9 a.m. and that's in Department 14 if anybody would like to attend. We do anticipate the judge will bifurcate the case and set a trial date. When that is, I'm not going to look into the crystal ball, but I will report the facts when we get it. Going to the second case, this is the district versus LAFCO. This is up at the 6th District Court of Appeal. The closing reply briefs by LAFCO and Cal-Am, their deadline to file has been extended to March 6, 2026. I think they're trying to drag their feet a little bit to see what the timing of this Monterey Superior Court case is going to be. On the third case, this is the city of Marina and the district versus the Coastal Commission in Cal-Am. The district's joint counsel did file their opening brief with the appellate court on February 12th. The next step there is for the Coastal Commission to file their reply briefs. We'll provide you an update when that is. In front of the CPUC, this is a case, the general rate case for 2025. The district did submit formal testimony on February 6th. That testimony was also received from the California Water Association. There was a mediation that was held earlier today trying to settle the case. All I can say out of that is it's not settled and there is a check-in in a couple weeks. And then Cal-Am has until March 24th to submit its rebuttal testimony. The only other outstanding case here is the district versus the State Water Resources Control Board. This is the attorney seeking attorney fees. All briefs on that matter by the district, Cal-Am, and Sierra Club have been filed, and a hearing is set for March 26, 2026, in front of Judge Charles F. Adams in Department 7th up in San Jose. That concludes my report.
Are there any questions? Director Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. At the admin meeting, I heard discussion over the taxpayers' lawsuit, the rebates. What they supposed to get back. Is it anything the public's supposed to do on that? Because I was hearing people receiving postcards or whatever and checking things. Do the public have to do anything on that?
Not at this point.
Not at this point. I want to bifurcate that because that's no longer part of the litigation report, that those matters have been closed. It's now an administrative process regarding informing the taxpayers and providing them information. And Dave, you have that timeline better than I do.
Yeah, so the taxpayers received today, or their attorneys received today, a summary of the settlement funds and the allocation of the funds to the receiving parties. Hopefully tomorrow or within the next few days, they'll say, okay, great, we got what we need, and then we can go ahead and process checks.
Okay.
So checks will go out, 5 days from now? In the month of March.
Okay,
30 minutes.
and the only reason I'm bringing that up, we need to keep the public informed, because
Yes.
listen to that meeting, I thought I supposed to have filled out a card or something. And I'm on a fixed income. I hate to miss anything. So,
Yeah, in this case, every citizen in our jurisdiction who received a water supply charge already received notification, and they could opt out. Otherwise, they were treated as already opted in. So if a citizen did nothing, they're in for a refund check.
okay, thanks for clearing that.
There will be a series. We're into the 30,000 checks or so, roughly. So they're not all going to happen on the same day. So if you hear from your neighbor that they got a check, it may be that you're in the second, third, or fourth round of checks.
Thank you.
Director Riley.
I have a question about the lawsuit that's not on the calendar here. And it's the Lone Star issue with Marina Coast and the water rights issue at the sand mine. Is there a way that you can update us on that as we go along, or can that be included in future reports? Because it's a water rights issue related to their desal. And it's,
Yep. Yeah, and as soon as the decision comes down, we will notify the board of the decision, but all of the proceedings have been closed. The final amicus briefing, I believe, is closed. So it's all, they had the trial, they heard everything, and it's just waiting on a judge's decision at this point.
is there a prognosis on timing for the decision?
We're not a party to it, so we don't have that intercommunication with the courts on that. I can ask, but we don't have access to that information. What I will say is we can provide a separate memo when that information becomes public. I am not going to include it in our litigation report because the district is not a party to that, even though we may have similar interests. We can prepare it as a separate memo as an update.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that because it's a big issue.
Anyone else? Before I go out to the public, that one easy question. Joe Mack, you said the checks will start going out sometime in March. When can the last person expect to have received a check? And roughly, if they haven't received it by this date, then they can call and see if their name is even on the list.
Mayor Gillespie, I wish I could provide you a precise date. We asked the same question to our attorney because it's all contingent on the effective date. And so all we know that it's supposed to be during the month of March. We don't have an exact date. As we get that information, we can pass that along. And I think we could even update it on our website because we are providing information on there.
Yeah, that's why I would ask, just put on the website, if you haven't, this day, we expect everybody to have received a check. After this date, if you haven't, give us a call,
Right.
And some people are patient and they'll receive that information and just wait to turn it there. All right, that was it, just simple.
Okay.
Yeah, just a reminder, Mr. Rowley's check was used to buy a new timer.
Well, we'll open up for public comment. Public comment. Either one of those reports.
Chair Oglesby, I see no raised hand.
Thank you. Seeing no one here, no one, public comments closed. We go to director reports, including in the AB 123 reports on trips, conferences, attendance, and meetings on our behalf. Anyone? Good.
Hey, just a quick thank you for the district, the GM, or whoever spoke at the CPUC, came down here in Sand City. Susan Savoni for her letter that was in our packet. I want to thank all of them for showing up down there and doing that and keeping the public informed of what's going on. So
No, good comment. That makes a difference.
it makes a big difference, and I appreciate all of them.
All right. Okay, we'll go to item number 9. Consider second reading and adoption of ordinance number 200 and repealing ordinance number 152. Jeremy Andrew.
I think you summarized it perfectly. There's been no change from the first reading. The difference here is the recommendation is adoption.
Okay. Yes, Director, of course. I move adoption. Well, I'm going to the public first. So thank you so much. Public comment is open.
I see no raised hands.
Seeing no one, hearing no one, public comment is closed. Bring it back to the board. What is the will of the board? Move adoption. Has been probably moved in second. On the question. All those in favor, is this a roll call?
Roll call vote, yes. Director Daniels,
Aye.
Director Edwards,
Aye.
Director Riley,
Aye.
Director Paul, Yes. Director Gawain,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lindor,
Aye.
Chair Oglesby. Ordinance is adopted 7-0.
Thank you. We'll go to item number 10, consider request by All Saints Day School for District Reserve Water for its field house project at 8060 Carmel Valley Road, Carmel.
Chair Oglesby, I'm going to recuse myself from this item. I have a son who's a current student at the school. Council, is that okay with you?
That is an appropriate recusal. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Oglesby.
Going nowhere. Yeah, please, I'm sorry. please.
No, it's fine. Members of the board, All Saints Day School is requesting 0.204 acre feet of water from the district reserve allocation to serve a new field house that's currently under construction near its athletic fields in Carmel Valley. The building includes locker rooms, changing rooms, 2 classrooms, and a multi-purpose space, and is expected to be completed later this spring. The project was originally permitted to use an on-site well. However, the school has later determined that using the well would require creating and operating a regulated water system, including storage tanks, pumps, ongoing permits, water quality testing, and a certified treatment operator. These requirements would create significant administrative and operational burdens. District staff agrees that the regulatory process to use this well is complex and unnecessary given the development of the Pure Water Monterey expansion supply, though that permit is not yet available for allocation in the county. So at staff's suggestion, the applicant contacted the county about using its Pure Water Monterey allocation, but the county has not yet established a release policy and likely will not do so until after this project is complete. Because the facility benefits local students and community users, staff encouraged the school to request district reserve water. The school will offset its demand using 0.041 acre feet of Malpaso entitlement that it has available and 0.068 acre feet that it has available in water use credits on site. So that left the shortfall of 0.204, which is what they're requesting from the reserve. This request is time critical because construction is underway. Approval would allow the new building to be served by the existing CalAm water connection. Our district reserve allocation totals 2,090 acre feet, 0.462 acre feet. The request represents about 0.01% of the reserve allocation and would not affect overall supply planning. Staff recommends approval of this request, noting the project's community benefit and the lack of access to the county's water allocation at this time. Approval would not obligate future approvals for use of the district reserve, as the reserve remains available at the board's discretion. If denied, the school would need to build a public water system to use the well or delay occupancy until the county water becomes available. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you so much. Any questions, Director?
Thank you. Have we received any other requests for some of the district reserve?
This is we have not received a request in many years. I think the last request we had to do with the women's shelters that were approved in the city of Monterey and in the city of Seaside.
And that was.
I'm gonna say during COVID, perhaps. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we don't get a lot of requests for this water, but again, because of its proximity to the Carmel Valley area and the use of the area by students and locals, we thought this was appropriate.
Any other questions?
I
Director?
I do have a question. About how many students in public does this serve? Do you have an
Well,
idea?
I have the head of school here and I'll let the applicant answer that
Okay.
question for you.
Thank you.
So any other questions from the board at this point?
Yeah, for Stephanie or for?
Oh, for Stephanie.
Yes.
Have we talked to the county about paying us back this water since they slow on doing what they should be doing instead of looking at pot lounges and stuff? have we talked to them about paying us back? That
I
water.
will let Mr.
Jim?
Holt respond.
We have a mechanism to do so.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I will ask the applicant to come up and answer any questions from the board.
Hi, I'm Sarah Brown. I'm the head of school. I want to start by saying something you know that I did not when this process started, that water is complicated. And so I want to thank the staff for helping me understand the process and walking the school through this and being so supportive, starting with the report that Stephanie shared tonight. You know, I think just two things I want to point out is one, we originally approached CalAm about a wheeling agreement, thinking that could solve our problem, and realized pretty quickly that it was going to be expensive, time consuming, and actually not even address the needs that we had. Then we reached out to the county and asked about an allocation. We attended the public hearing on November 12th and realized also that there's not quite yet a plan or a formal timeline for when the county will have those allocations set. So we feel like this is the best option for us in terms of helping us complete the project. To answer your question, the school has about 255 students. This project does not in any way expand capacity of the school, increase the number of people who'll be using it. This building is for our current students to use. So it's like Stephanie said, it's classrooms, it's a multi-purpose room, and it has additional restrooms that would meet the needs of those classrooms in this building. So this doesn't broaden the scope of the size of the school in any way.
Was that your question?
That was my
Yeah.
question, but I also know, it also notes that it's going to serve the community as well. Is that the community through the students, or is it open to the community?
Yeah, I understand. At sometimes our field is used for local soccer teams or community use, Boy Scouts and people who use the field. And so in that case, especially the restrooms would be open for folks to use in that
Excellent.
case.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, can you tell us the
Yeah.
percentage of time something will that kind of break down? Because by observation, it's extraordinarily busy there
Yeah.
every afternoon. So what percentage of that time is being used by league play that
Yeah.
does not include your students?
Yeah, thank you. Sure. Yeah, I don't know if I could give you a percentage, but I could speak more to the day use of it. So our facilities are used by our students Monday through Friday. So afternoons, we have, our middle school may have soccer games or flag football games. But we are using those facilities every day, Monday through Friday during the school year. And on the weekends, we also are using it currently for community use for, local YMCA type teams to use it for soccer or flag football.
By the school, are you entering into a lease or rental?
In some cases, yes. Yeah. I apologize. I don't know that off the top of my head, the number of parking places that we have.
So when it's so busy, it seems that that's not for flag football. That must be for some kind of league or regional games.
Yeah.
when their parking lots just filled with cars.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I apologize. I don't know the number of parking places off the top of my head.
Very briefly, Joel Panzer with Maureen Ruck Planning, assisting the school on that. Two other points I just wanted to bring up is if the board approves this, it allows us to extinguish that small Malpaso piece, and then there was a single family home that was torn down. And the non-residential water use, the calculation of the multiplier to get there, the school probably just could not extinguish that water use because it's so minor. So this allows an opportunity to kind of clear the deck on that. I would also then mention that All Saints has, I want to say it's like a 1960 vintage use permit from Monterey County that has an enrollment cap. And as Ms. Brown reported, the student population is below that. But when we went in to do the use permit for the sporting fields and then the use permit for the field house, the county did speak about, other groups that were using it. And that was, longstanding arrangements. And All Saints agreed not to open that up further, meaning to maximize and cause, not more, traffic or noise or whatever. So that was factored into the two permits that the All Saints got within the last 2 years for those two projects. And I want to say that it was a significant parking lot expansion. They may have added 50 or 60. I don't recall specifically off the top of my head, but it was a substantial number of parking spaces that are now in front of that field house that go to where the Walters Farm stand used to be. So hopefully that feedback is helpful.
Okay, any other comments? Let's take it out to the public. Public comment is open.
My name is Mary McVicker. Hope you can hear me. I wanted to thank everybody first, just you're doing such amazing work and these make very long days for you guys, so I really appreciate it. My husband and I have lived across the Carmel River from All Saints Day School for 34 years. We raised our two children here in local schools. My career is in education, and we totally support providing opportunities for children. Before granting All Saints more water, I just hope the board will investigate their current overreach. When All Saints gained permission for the athletic facilities development, they had a population of 230 students. This was 3 years ago, and we're allowed a maximum of 300 students. If they have now exceeded their water needs, it may be because they have extended their daily use both by many hours per day and by hundreds of people per week. When All Saints received approval to develop the sports facilities, the project was conditioned on limits that included the facility use ending by 5 p.m. or dusk, that the facilities would be closed to the public, only to be used by the maximum of 300 students, and their existing activities that they had at the time, All Saints games and practices, with only narrow exceptions, and listed was the Red Cross. No increase in vehicle trips, no new classrooms, no new lighting, no encroachment into the riverbed, and no erosion risk. Despite these stipulations, today we see all new traffic on weekend events for school teams from across the county. Evening games and practices that are illuminated by 5 portable generated floodlights that look like this. There's 5 of them. Those are listed in the Monterey County ordinance as unacceptable. And athletic event noise in the evenings and on weekends. The fundraising page on the All Saints website explains that its fundraising goals include for the field house intended new classrooms and community events, which to me is the public. Student and staff access into the riverbed and community events in the outdoor learning areas. Yesterday, it was a beautiful rural Sunday morning. There was a constant stream of cars dropping off and picking up children at All Saints. I counted 159 cars parked in the parking lot and more coming in. There were about 10 referees, professional referees, blowing whistles, literally hundreds of parents, children, grandparents, babies, pulling coolers, carrying lawn chairs, playing on the school play structures. These are not the conditions under which All Saints said it would operate in order to receive its permits for expansion. Our quiet neighborhood has changed after 34 years. In the last 2 years and more, the noise often begins at 7:30 in the morning and ends at 7:30 at night. There's noise on Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays. Floodlights shine across the previously dark riverbed. Part of being good neighbors, good citizens, and good educators is understanding the reasons for limits and following them. Children should understand that neighbors and the natural environment should be protected. If All Saints Day School has changed its purpose and intent for the expansion and therefore needs more water than they have had in the past, then that repurposing should be brought up for public review and discussion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Faster does. I timed it at home, but I went faster. Thank you so much.
Public comment remains open.
Chair Oglesby, I see no raised hands.
Okay, seeing no one else, hearing no one else, public comment is closed. Bringing it back to the dais, what is the will of the board, Director Paul?
I was going to ask before you close public comment, if we could hear a response from the head of school?
No.
Is that possible?
No.
No?
No, but I can give you
No.
clarification on permit
Yeah.
requirements.
Yeah, well, someone said they can't hear, so could you say what you said again, but
I was wondering if we could give the head of school opportunity to respond to the information that was just given to us about the permit conditions and compliance with permit conditions. No.
okay. No, what I said was not during public comment. Public comment is closed. The applicant can respond if you want the applicant to respond. You want to hear from the applicant?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Come on, head of schools, director, whoever think they have the best answers, I guess. And so, Director, Paul, you can focus your questions, you know, I don't know if they remember all. They heard it all, but you want answers to what particular question?
Well, the speaker who just spoke, what I understood is that there may be violations of permit conditions going on with increased activity weekends and evenings and so on, and possibly things that increase water use. So I just like to understand if that's the case, and when did things change? It sounded like the speaker was saying in the last 2 years, things have changed and there's activity evenings and weekends. And are there is this expanded activity? Does it violate any permit conditions?
So again, Joel Panzer, I worked with All Saints to obtain the two permits that I referenced earlier. One was for construction of the athletic fields, and then the second one was a separate use permit for Monterey County for the operation of the field house. Some of the items that were described by the speaker are not in the permit. To my knowledge, and I'm not on campus as a regular observer, so to speak, but there was a very clear discussion with the former head of school and Monterey County about how that sporting field would be used, and it would just be to honor long-term commitments for groups that were already out there. And it was very clear to the county that no additional groups were going to be invited in to increase the level of activity. So I'm surprised to hear that comment. And I've been in touch with our Monterey County planner, and I would think that if because what was described is a Monterey County use permit issue, not necessarily a water issue. He's not mentioned that he's received any complaint calls or we need to look into anything. So I'm just, I won't say surprised to hear the comments, but the impression of the permit that was granted is not how I remember it. Now, I didn't think to print copies of the permit and review that aspect of it.
Yeah.
But I believe we're in full compliance with what Monterey County has asked the All Saints to do under two separate permits, which were open to public hearings and public comment letters and so forth. So.
Okay, thank you. And, I realize that, it's not the water management district's job to adjudicate all the permit issues, but I just wanted more clarity on the
Thank you.
situation. Thank you.
No, ma'am. Any other questions or comments from the board? Director Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. Stephanie, that school is in the district. Have they been inspected for retrofits and everything so we can know that they have the water, they should be saving water if anything now?
Oh, yeah, they're totally tight. This project, again, this has already been permitted. It's already been constructed. When we issue permits, we're looking at square footage. We're not looking at their actual consumption. So all we're trying to do with this is change the source of water for this particular project. And yes, they have done every retrofit they need to do. They are fully compliant.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Director. Yeah.
Comments and an issue that have been raised, and will that be discussion after there's a motion?
If
Would that be, because it's not a question or a.
right.
Okay.
Right, we'll get to that in 10 seconds, so.
Mhm.
So if there's no other questions, then yeah, we're gonna have the board discuss what they want to discuss. I would just, put out there that again, violations of their building permit is not adjudicated here, and I think we heard that before, right? So we just want to be clear about staying in our lane, so we're not caught in any mix we shouldn't be caught in, so. Any comments you guys want to make? Director?
Yeah, I have a lot of comments. One is that I think that this would be, I recognize that this head of school was not the head of school when this expansion was done and may therefore not be familiar. She's probably very busy and not spending time reading permits and may not be familiar therefore with what is going on there. But I think this is extending the courtesy, and I would like to extend courtesies that support the appropriate and approved use. And I know that there is a problem in this area with intensification of use of all kinds. We have many venues that are party venues and it's approved for 10, but now it's 100, and then we have venues that are approved for, I don't know, someone's private birthday party and it doesn't need a permit, but now it's 250 people and didn't need a permit, so on. So we just have a chronic situation there with intensification of use. And I do not think we have a public record about whether that has occurred here, but I think we have enough to make a question. And I have a completely different, I feel that there's also a question about community benefit. Obviously, athletics for children is a community benefit. But again, if we're supporting something that's actually intrusive on the community by granting this, I think that is a problem that does relate to water. And then finally, I just a problem that I think is really not relating to All Saints Day School, but maybe to the engineers or architects or program people who approve this, because I would not want to set any kind of precedent that someone can come in with well water and say this means we have the water to move forward with the project, then under the current terms, build the project, and then later say, oh, well, it didn't really work, but we're going to CalAm, which could be a good outcome. We have situations, for example, under the builder's remedy, which are coming up now. We have people who are saying, well, we have well water. And so we can do it now under the current terms that are in place, like the builder's remedy. And then perhaps they would say, well, it's not economical in the end, and say, well, but now the water's available because it's going to become available. So I just wouldn't want to set it in precedent. So I have some concerns about it, and I wish we had an opportunity to clarify that the use was not intensified and that this bathroom was not contributing to that.
Okay, anyone else?
George, you know, think about it. I think we need to stay in our lane, like the chair said. And I'd like to separate out what's a water permit and a use permit. And the use permit is regulated by the county because that's the permit source. We're a permit source for water allocation only. And if the other jurisdiction has a reason why they can't afford or can't find the time to figure out how to make it work, we're in a position to do that for water only. So I would like to say that we should stay in our lane, consider the water permit. I think it ought to be authorized. And that would be my position. I'd make a motion whenever the time is right.
I'll second it.
Oh, yeah, make it first.
I move approval of the water allocation for.
I'll second it.
It's been properly moved in second. Are there any questions? On the question?
Just
Yes, sir.
speaking on the second,
Yeah.
I agree. Looking at this, but I want the district itself to go back to the county and get the water back for the reserve. Don't forget it. I want to help them. I want to help all the schools if I can. And we'll be talking about that at water demand coming up. We got other schools that are going to need water. And we need to put that part aside. But I don't want to get into the permitting on what's going on. That's the planning department of the county. And you need to file a complaint against them. If that's the place that should be, but this is about water. I don't like to talk about land use because we the water. So, that's why I second that, so we can move this along. I heard you, Director, over there. I heard you.
Yeah, are you good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard the director and made good points, and I heard the public comments. But the thing is, we don't have information to adjudicate any of those comments. And then if we call ourselves deciding on those issues, we would not be on solid ground. And so if there are violations of the permit, then there's a proper place to take those. But here, we can't even really entertain it, to be honest with you. I definitely can't base our decision on what may or may not be happening out there. It's about the water, and do we have the water to give them? And so those are my comments. All those in favor use the rec sign voting, which is aye.
Aye.
Nays have the same right. Abstentions. Motion carries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 0, 1. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to item number
Interesting.
11. Consider adoption of mid-year fiscal year 2025-26 budget adjustment.
Yeah.
Michelle.
I'm waiting for Director Daniels.
No, you. Yeah, that's why I called you up.
Be there
Okay.
enough time for the puzzle. Different times.
You almost finished?
We got 3 puzzles. A special district magazine.
Well, you had a book too. You could have taken this with you.
Chair Gillespie, members of the board. Item number 11 is an action item to consider adoption of the mid-year budget adjustments for the current fiscal year. And I will be going over the changes, starting with the original adopted budget, which was 46.58 million. And as you can see here in the red, about half of our budget is for purchase of water. And in the yellow, that's what 28% for reimbursement projects. Those are grants for the Pure Water Monterey expansion project. Then the green is the 13% for personnel. And then the blue is the project expenditures that are non-reimbursable, like Measure J, conservation projects, Santa Margarita site, and Sleepy Hollow. So the point worth making on this slide is, if you look at 80% of our budget, that's for either providing water or increasing water supply or managing water supply through conservation. So that's directly hitting the main objectives of the district. And the personnel expenses and the other expenses could be considered as indirect costs, although all this work is being performed by a staff of 24. So personal expenditures are also kind of like directly related. So even though the budget has grown bigger, it's just that the district is meeting its objective at a bigger scale. All right, so this is the revenue side of the budget. And here you can see that about 45% of our revenues budget is coming from sale of water, about 28% from reimbursements. And if you add the user fees in blue and the property tax in yellow, that's another 25% of our revenues budget. And then we have capacity fees, permit fees, and interest income. Those are very small slivers. So this slide compares the original adopted budget with how we are doing, so how we have done in the first 6 months. So the year-to-date revenues and the year-to-date expenses are compared to the original budget. And as you can see here on the first one, our year-to-date revenues are 38% or 17 million off the original budget, and our year-to-date expenses are about 36% or 16.6 million. So this graph kind of gives us a clue that the budget needs to be adjusted or maybe adjusted down. And that's what's actually happening. This slide shows the overall mid-year adjustment. So we are reducing the budget by 4.3 million. And so the amended budget will be 42.2 million. And the graph on the right shows what the main adjustments are. So just 2 major categories. we are proposing to increase the purchase of water by by a certain margin, and then decrease the remaining project expenditures by 5 million. And I'm going to get into this a little bit more in the other slides. So that's the high level overview. Now here, this is a breakdown of Exhibit B. This is summarizing the changes to the operations budget, which is salaries, services and supplies, and fixed assets. So if you look at the very bottom, this is a very modest increase of less than 150,000. We are increasing the salaries budget by 190,000 or 3%. And that's because we need to account for vacation buyouts, which is allowed as part of the new MOUs that were adopted in 2024. The midsection is the services and supplies budget. In total, that budget is increasing by about 14,000, not much. And it's mostly professional services. We bought a new budget book software, and so that's the professional services fees. And then we have reductions in travel and meeting expenses. And then fixed assets, those are also getting reduced. The district placed an order for 2 vehicles, but we won't be getting those vehicles until August or September. And so we need to move this budget to the next budget year. And so that's a reduction in this year. So that's summarizing the operations. And now we look at the big one. This is the project expenditures, which is getting reduced by 4.5 million. And a detailed listing of this is shown in Exhibit C. Here we are just showing the 4 major changes. And I'm going to start off with the purchase of water. So the original budget included purchase of about 5,062 acre feet of water, which included 250 acre feet for the operating reserve and about 4,800 for sale to Cala. Now we have gotten updated numbers from Monterey One Water. So the amended budget includes purchase of about 5,200 acre feet of water. But we know that we won't be able to sell all of this to Calan. So we are redirecting some of those purchases to our operating reserve and our drought reserve. So we are proposing that about 250 acre feet be redirected to the drought reserve and about 523 acre feet be redirected to the operating reserve. And by doing that, we will fulfill our obligation, based on the agreement that we have with Monterey One Water, that will fulfill our obligation for the entire operating reserve if we are able to do this. And so this graph on the bottom kind of summarizes what's happening for water purchases. So we are anticipating to reduce the amount of water that's going to be sold to Calan by 385 acre feet and increase the amount of water that we put in our reserves by 520 acre feet. So that's the water side. The third item here is the Pure Water Monterey expansion project, and that budget is getting reduced by 3.5 million. And that's because of 2 reasons. Number one, when we proposed the budget, the original budget, that was done in about April, and we didn't know how much would be spent last fiscal year versus this fiscal year. And now we have that number. And then second, we did an accounting change, in consultation with our auditors, and we moved what's called the revenue recognition policy from 60 days to 90 days. And by doing that, we are able to recognize expenses and revenues associated with the year in the year the work is performed. So there were more expenses allocated last year and less this year. Now, in prior years, we had to allocate expenses in the last quarter to the following year. So there's a little bit, what we're trying to do is accurately depict finances so they match operations. And so that's what we're trying to do. So the combination of those 2 things is Pure Water Monterey expansion is getting reduced by 3.5 million. And then the IRWM 1 and 2 grants, these are for stormwater capture. Let me take a breath. So this is dependent on the spending by our project sponsors, which includes the city of Monterey, the city of San City, and the county. And so this pace of spending is driven by these other public jurisdictions. These projects aren't being billed at the rate we thought they would be, so we need to decrease that budget by 1.5 million. So that summarizes project expenditures. This was a heavy slide. A light ones. This just summarizes what's happening at a very high level. So we went from 46.6 million to 42.2 million. We are increasing personnel budget and services and supplies budget by a small margin, and most of the changes is happening in project expenditures and fixed assets. All right, this slide is summarizing Exhibit A. So now we are looking at the changes on the revenue side. And the major changes here are per water Monterey sales are going down by 1.6 million, as was explained before. We are increasing the budget for capacity fees and interest income by 150,000. And then we are reducing all the reimbursement related revenues for the expansion project and the IRWM grants. Now, what's worth noting here is on the fund balance, which is general reserve, we anticipate to dip into our fund balance and use about $2 million of our fund balance for the operating reserve and the drought reserve. So that brings us, all those changes bring us to 42.23 million. So this is the reserve analysis, and as some of you may recall, the city adopted, not the city, sorry, the district adopted a reserves policy in November of 2025. And so this reserve analysis, did I pause?
No.
Yeah, this reserve analysis just reflects that new reserve policy. And what we did in the reserve policy is we designated what are the types of reserves that we need to have and what are the minimum target levels for those reserves. So we deleted the litigation reserve, and then we added a capital project reserve and a compensated absences reserve. And these reserves are for our known liabilities. All the unknown liabilities, including our litigation expenses in the future, would need to come out of the general operating reserve. So currently we are at 28.8 million, and we anticipate to be at 23.3 million. Of course, this includes 3.3 million for the water supply charge. Those are checks that will be written out in March. And so that's our current projection. If revenues are better than expected, or if expenses are lower than expected, then we might, our general operating reserve position might be better than what's shown on this slide.
But that's not what you're showing us. You're showing us the 23, right? We know it could be better, right? But
Yes.
It's gonna be 23.
This is based on the mid-year budget.
Okay.
And actually, that brings us to a close.
Well,
Happy to take questions.
well done. Well done. Very nice graphics. Any questions from the board? Yes, go ahead, Tris.
Okay, you don't have all night to answer, to tutor me as a complete newbie, but the prior practice was to separate out the litigation and expenses, and now they're, and is that just an accounting standard that's changed, or because of the way they working within our budget, it makes more sense to do it this way? I'm just trying to understand.
I think your question is related to the reserve, the
Yeah,
litigation
yeah,
reserve. This is all based on a reserves policy, which is agreed by the board, and then staff just follows the policy.
Okay.
There was a robust discussion that happened on why we are deleting the litigation reserve. And there's some level of optics. We don't want to tell the public we have money for litigation purposes. You know, that's not our prime business. So we said, move that, delete that, move that into general operating reserve.
In a sense, you're saying, we have money that you can sue us about. You know, we're reserving money because we think we may be doing something wrong. And, right, so some cities, some organizations have that, but then they realize that's what it's saying. You anticipate being sued for something, so you're putting in a special fund.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the presentation and the way in which you've laid it out with these slides and the description. The slide expenditure adjustments, project expenditures, Exhibit C is really heavy in terms of trying to really understand it. My first point is just a comment. It's not a question. I don't like to get political, but I'm just gonna say that we sell water. Just there it is. So,
For how
one
much?
thing. But the second thing, is I'm trying to understand the IRWM, the earworm grants and the reduction. So we received grant money. The projects aren't happening as fast as we would have liked. So what are we doing with that money?
So take, for example, the Carmel River Free Project, close to home. Their FEMA grant, federal grant, was held back. So we had a grant that we got through the IRWM program on behalf of the county. That money exists, but the county can't spend it until they get all their other grants in order.
Great.
So that grant will just sit there accumulating interest probably for the county. Have we already turned it over? We haven't.
No, we act as a pass-through when someone expenses, let's say the county expenses funds, they will send us an invoice. We will turn around and tell the state, this is a eligible expense, please give us the funds, and then we'll take those funds and actually give it to the county. And so if something isn't expended, I think these grants are till 2027, 2028. So we have some time. And if we think that a public agency isn't spending funds, then we basically tell them, hey, you have this pot of money, now's the time to spend it. We try to do it through our project engineer, who I think stays on top and has direct contact with the public agencies.
So I misspoke in that it's still sitting with the State Department of Water Resources.
And we have till 2027, so we'll probably see it on our budget next year.
Yep, and Sand City had a similar issue with their stormwater project, that they just have personnel limitations and they haven't been able to get going.
Got it. Okay, this makes sense. I just wanted to make sure I understood what was happening with those funds.
Director?
Yes, I have a question. This will be for our general manager about the water purchase agreement. So under the water purchase agreement, we're obligated to deliver a certain amount of water every year.
Right.
CalAm is not obligated to buy all of it. Is that?
Well, they are.
I thought they were. So
Right,
if
and
you-
so we're in that, call it the in-between stage, where we have not declared the performance start date, term of art. And when we do, from that point forward, we're obligated to deliver 5,750 acre feet per year. And CalAm has to purchase it and take it. But the project is seasonally variable. So in the winter months, there's more water available, summer months, less water available. And so here we are in the winter where the expansion came online, late October, and deliveries started going up. But we also have this reserve requirement, the operating reserve, that needs to be stepped up an amount. And we've kind of looked and we said, well, the water purchase agreement does allow us to step up that reserve 3 years after the performance start date. But because there's so much water being produced right now, and CalAm doesn't really know if they need it or if they don't need it. And I mean, they're kind of getting used to these increased deliveries. We said, well, let's be opportunistic and let's get the reserve up to where it needs to be now, instead of waiting until after we have to deliver more water contractually, so we can get it while we can. And then we looked at drought resilience, and we do know that in multiple years of drought, the expansion itself may not have, maybe short 145 acre feet to 345 acre feet, depending on testimony and conditions and so forth. So then we said, well, while we're doing this front loading and being opportunistic, let's perhaps also put some money towards a drought reserve. So the concept is fill our operating reserve fully up in advance, and then put 250 acre feet aside while we have both the water and the money to kind of protect us against a drought event of 1 to 2 years of duration. We may come back to you next year, because that will also be an in-between year, because we'll have declared the performance start date no later than February of 2027. So now we'll have one of these other fiscal years that cross over two kind of water situations. So we may try to get another 250 acre feet for the drought reserve, and then step back and just deliver what the contract requires.
Well, thank you for that. I'll put aside for now, like how the performance date is determined, because that's kind of not what I'm focused on right now, but it's really good to let the public know that we're taking advantage of the situation with to make an investment in both increased operating reserve and drought reserve right now. And so we're spending money on it. We're putting that water in the reserve. But this is not financial reserve. This is water reserves, which is, very, we're doing it sooner than we have to, right? Because we can do it. And it makes sense to do it. So I just think it's worth pointing that out for the public.
Director Riley.
Thank you. On that point, 5,750 acre feet is the contract commitment. I think the Monterey One Water was going to supercharge their effort and produce more than that. Have they done that? And then how do we treat that too in the calculations if they do produce more?
So we've had multiple meetings. One meeting on water production in the foreseeable future, one meeting on finances, one meeting on allocation of overhead. So we're really focused on the project right now as it steps up. I wouldn't hold out hope for significant overproduction, which is one of the reasons why filling the reserve in advance is probably more sensible. That being said, they gave us very positive news on how much water they could deliver. We didn't think they'd make it in February, and it looks like they'll make it in February. So I think what we're seeing is there will be sufficient water to not breach the contract, but it's not clear that there's going to be sufficient water to really perform filling reserves later. And, I'll be a little honest, now that we've got 5 years of operating history under our belt, we probably have too big of a reserve, but it's what we agreed to. But it is an asset on our books that's booked at the then cost of water, which means if we ever have to tap it, it'll be at the future cost of water. So it's not a bad asset to have. The hard part will be if you have to tap it and then you have to refill it, what will be the operating conditions at that time? And I think right now, until we get to the future, we don't want to assume that there's going to be a whole lot of surplus once we deliver that 5,750 per year.
So to be managed as the facts emerge.
There are penalties for breach that the first water purchase agreement did not have. So we're very finely attuned to, you can do one thing for 1 year, you can do another thing for a couple of years, but you can't do a third thing for multiple years. So we can survive taking some water out of the operating reserve to make up in 1 year, but you can't really do that for 3 years. Then you have financial penalties. So we're kind of playing out what we think statistically we're going to have, but I'd really like to get 3 or 4 operating years at the new amount kind of behind us first. So that's a little bit of the reason we're front loading these reserves now is it's not like you would take 5,750 and divide by 12 months and say, okay, every month we have to deliver you this after the performance start date. It's in a full fiscal year following the performance start date, we have to deliver 5,750. So that's how we have these 2 years of a little bit of the old contract, a little bit of the new contract, a little bit of several months without the performance obligation, and then 5 months with it, that we can kind of move water around to our benefit, except not our financial benefit, sorry. But
Okay.
All right, no,
Yeah.
I'm satisfied, thanks.
yeah.
All right, anyone else? We'll take it out to public comment is open.
Cheryl was basing no raised hands.
Thank you. Seeing no one here, no one, public comment is closed. What is the will of the board?
Move to adopt the mid-year fiscal year budget adjustment.
It's been properly moved and second on the question. I had a comment. What I came up with, wrote down is just being efficient and effective. I mean, they're not ready to take the water, so what are we gonna do? We're gonna save the water. I mean, that sounds like a perfect plan that you have. And so, only thing struck me is when you said, well, maybe we have too much reserve. You never have too much reserve. You use it when you need it.
Yeah.
You're front loaded now and, but thank you for that. I thought it was well done. Operational decisions you guys made to make this happen. All right, all those in favor use regular sign of voting, which is aye.
Aye.
Nays have the same right. Abstentions, hearing none, ayes have a motion carried unanimously. Information items, staff reports. You guys should have received all those reports and electronically. Are there any questions or highlights or anything you want to mention to staff about it? Okay, all right. Okay, our next item is adjournment. If there's no more comments or questions, there's no further business on this agenda.
Through the chair, before you do, I just want to point out your next meeting is March 6th at the Strategic Planning Workshop, which routinely has been held at the Asilomar Conference Grounds. It is not there this year. It's the Asilomar Room in Monterey on the Pearl
Works.
Works. So there is,
Don't confuse and go out to.
don't be confused and go to Pacific Grove. You're going to Monterey.
Isn't it the corner of Pearl and Washington? I
It
think?
is.
Yeah.
And we'll probably get an update email before that
Yep.
day. I appreciate it.
And we're trying to resolve parking because they limited parking, but we're gonna request more permits in the parking lot like the day before.
Ike and I will be taking a field trip on Friday to work out the logistics.
And if I could just add that we have our legislative workshop at the county that day, so I won't be able to join you. I missed it last year too.
Now we are.
He's gonna hit that hammer.
I want to say that this work is particularly meaningful to me today, because at 1 o'clock